All right, Health Ranchers, I wanted to get real about depression. Yeah, it's a thing. It's huge. It's huge with weight loss. Most of the clients I see in my office are depressed to some degree in life. And being someone who suffered from depression probably close to 25, 30 years of their life, I can honestly attest that it sucks. Totally sucks. I had suicidal ideation from the time I was in my early 20s, like 20 or so. Never really could figure out what was wrong, that kind of thing. I've never been the type of person to take drugs of any kind, so I just never even wanted to go that route. I just felt like shit every day, period. Constantly consumed with my body image and my weight. But here's the thing, depression is a habit of the brain. It's a habitual thoughts that we have that cause a chemical response in the body. So if you're habitually like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I ever get it right? Why am I such a F up? All of those kind of things. Does life ever get any better? I'm worthless. All of these feelings and emotions that we carry around, these thoughts that are habitually flowing through our brain, creates a chemical response in the body, which creates depression. And it is a habit. Habits can be broken, and new habits can be installed in the body quite simply and quite easily. But I wanted to talk about depression because a lot of people really don't know my story and how I conquered depression. And I'm actually pretty happy most of the time. I mean, I have my days, but I've never felt this good in my entire life. So there's that. Some of you don't know that I had a baby boy when I was 43, and he died shortly after birth. And I call it my bitch slap from God. It was a very dark time in my life, in both me and my husband's life, because we just did not understand what was going on. I was healthy, the baby was healthy, everything looked good, and even afterwards, reading the autopsy, it was like reading The Perfect Child. There was a hospital-wide investigation. It was on grand rounds at the hospital. Nobody could figure out what was going on. They labeled it meconium aspiration as cause of death, but in talking with my team of doctors, they were like, that's not really it. We just had to put a diagnosis on there for cause of death, and we chose that. So it caused me to go into a massive, deep, dark depression. That level of grief is beyond anything I have ever experienced before. I mean, I buried my parents, I buried animals, all of those kinds of things. But that was a very, very dark time in my life. All of the suicidal ideation that I had really came up. I mean, there wasn't a moment of every day that I did not think about blowing my brains out. And I had the plan. I knew exactly where I was going to go out back by the wood pile and do it there so I didn't make a mess in the house. I had places picked out along the road that I was like, oh, if I just turn my wheel just right and hit it, I'll smash head on into that cliff or off into that ravine and be killed. That wasn't as much of an option for me because I thought, well, there's a chance I could really fuck that up. And actually, I'm going to be raw with you. I could just end up being a paraplegic or quadriplegic and not actually get the job done. So I thought, yeah, blowing my brains out would probably be a much better solution to this. Something happened during that time period. Something happens in grief. I began to study grief and what it does to the brain during that time because I couldn't even recall my name. Simple things that, I thought, I'm pretty sharp intellectually. Yeah, no, I couldn't function. I thought I was losing my mind. When you look at a brain MRI, when somebody's in intense grief, there's actually blocks of dendrites that turn black in the brain. So there's actually no information being fed to those areas. There's no energy traveling through those wires in the brain. So grief can cause a lot of problems. It took me about a year to overcome that. And honestly, I really worked hard at moving that energy out of my body. I I'll just be upfront with you. I went on hikes, raging hikes, and I call them raging hikes because I would just feel like trucking up the mountain, just yelling at God. I was so mad, and I did not understand. But this is the point of depression. It is a habit. Actually, yelling at God was probably the best thing I could do because I was really beginning to move that energy. I was really processing a lot of that loss and grief in my life. Now, did I lose weight from that? No. It took me another 3 years before it finally clicked that I needed to do something and that things had to change. But once I began that process, once I began to create a completely new identity and started to inhabit that space, because I had to stop all of the negative self-talk. Every day I'd look in the mirror and go, why are you so fat? What is wrong with you? You disgust me. I mean, that was my daily self-talk, and I couldn't pass a mirror. I honestly don't have hardly any pictures of me from the last 20 years. There's only a couple pictures of me and Mark. We've been married for almost 20 years. And I'm just like, this is what BS that I couldn't even take a picture of myself. I just learned how to take a selfie like 6 months ago. So there's that. So me doing these videos is pretty cool. So anyway, working on that negative self-talk and starting to retrain my brain and doing self-hypnosis every day, where I was just like, if I tell myself this, something has to change. Even though I didn't feel it at the time, I felt a huge disconnect between I am so effing skinny to I'm so disgusting and fat. What is wrong with me? Big gap in there, but I persisted. And every time my body would respond with, I want my fix, I want my depression fix, girl, give it to me, because those are all chemicals that are being produced in the body, I decided that I would just tell it to F off. And nope, I love myself. I love myself. That was probably the hardest thing for me to accept. But I continued and I persisted and I was consistent. Every time I looked in the mirror, I love myself. I love my body. I thank my body for doing all the wonderful, incredible things that it does for me on a day-to-day basis. So just by doing that, I noticed things started to change drastically. I started to have an idea that no matter what it takes, I was going to drop this weight. No matter how long it takes, I was going to drop this weight. I was not going to quit. These things happened gradually over time. They did not happen overnight. I have a lot more shortcuts now that I wish I would have known back then, because it would have really compressed the time period that it took me to lose 120 pounds. But regardless, it still worked. My point is depression. Depression is real. It is a chemical response in the body, but it's also a habit that can be changed. And if you would like help with overcoming that depression, call my office, DM me, reach out to me in some way. I'd be more than happy to help you. I've been there, done that. It sucks, but there is a way out. All right. Happy trails, happy ranchers, health ranchers. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.